I'm Jacob Seelman.
And I'm Tom Baker.
You're listening to Speed77 Radio,
powered by Race Chaser Online.
We are your home for motorsports.
Can't take no more than hair. Since the flag came down, I'll be here to the last lap around. Worked all week, it's time to play. Gonna get a little bit sideways. Here, since the flag came down, be here to the last lap around. Worked all week, it's time to play. Gonna get a little bit sideways.
Good evening, race fans, and welcome back to a brand new edition of Motorsports Madness here on Speed77 Radio, powered by Race Chaser Online. We've got a wild hour and change of motorsports on tap coming up tonight, and here's what's on the docket. We got a couple featured interviews that we'll share with you, race fans, tonight. We've got open wheel star Chris Bell going to be hearing from later on in the show, and late model and X1R Pro Cup racer Reed Wilson going to be talking with us about some of his work for 2014 as well. We've got a bunch of news and notes to talk about, including NASCAR news from Speed Weeks as we get set for the Battle at the Beach, modified news, K&M Pro Series news. A lot of it is on tap, and we've got it all. The madness is starting up, and we're glad you are along for the ride. Hello everyone, and welcome back to Speed77 Radio. I'm Jacob Seelman, joined by my colleagues at the Great Round Table, Tom Baker and James Pike. Gentlemen, we got a lot to talk about, and Tom, I'm going to start with you because you and I have been keeping an eye on it, me from my cozy little perch here in Charlotte, and you from mostly in the great state of Ohio over the weekend, but a lot to talk about here over the next hour or so.
Yeah, it is a busy show, man. Let's not waste any more time. Let's go!
Everybody's excited. I know, Pikester, I'll get to you in just a minute. James Pike joining us at the table as well. But Tom, let's get right to it because we've got a busy news and notes segment to start off the show tonight. And no announcements were bigger in the coming days leading up to Speed Weeks, Tom, than a couple of big driver announcements. One of those coming out of Tommy Baldwin Racing for 2014. They announced the driver of their number 36 car at the end of last week, and that was Reed Sorensen. Sorensen going to be crew chiefed by Todd Parrott, who was released from Richard Petty Motorsports last year after a whole mess with violating the substance abuse policy and all that. But Todd Parrott's back in the Sprint Cup Series, Reed Sorensen back in the Sprint Cup Series. In my opinion, all of a sudden, you got to look at Tommy Baldwin Racing as a race team on the rise, Tom. They've got two drivers with a lot of potential and two crew chiefs that know what they're doing. So this could be potentially a B-list team for 2014 if they can get things rolling, because they've got a new alignment with Richard Childress Racing as well.
Well, I definitely think that this is going to be a much different Tommy Baldwin Racing organization in 2014. What we're used to seeing, certainly not meant in any way to offend anyone for how it's been in the past, just to say that they've certainly upgraded. You've got Bono and Todd Parrott on the pit boxes, and you've got Reed Sorensen coming in, who's had a copious amount of Fast Cup experience, though he has been on a drastically reduced racing schedule over the last three seasons or so, but certainly a strong second chance for Reed to make a good first impression. And you gotta love the fact that Michael Annett is getting all this experience around him. Not only Reed Sorensen as a bit of a mentor who's been through this before in Cup, but again, the two crew chiefs and the alliance with RCR. You know, this is just going to be a much different looking Tommy Baldwin Racing organization than what it's been in the past. And I am sure that as all of the folks involved get used to working with each other, it would not surprise me at all to see this group start running in the top 10 to 15 on a regular basis as we get into or at least contending for those spots as we get into the middle and the middle and final thirds of the season. Obviously, I think they're going to need a little bit of time to gel and to sort some things out, but they're going to have great equipment. They got good people, and Daytona's a crapshoot, guys, and it's a plate race. Anybody can wind up in the front. It's basically to the front, to the back, to the front, to the back, and wouldn't surprise me at all to see either of those cars up in front for a while during the race, and who knows where it happens at the end. Certainly not. Wouldn't say they were odds-on favorites to win, but you never know in those races, and I do think that this is going to be a good recipe to possibly get them off to a fairly good start.
I would have to agree. It's going to be very interesting. We've seen the Tommy Baldwin cars perform well at plate tracks with Dave Blaney behind the wheel.
Definitely.
So we'll have to see what happens. Pikester, I want to turn to you for the second driver announcement of the week, and that's Jeb Burton moving from a maligned situation and an unfortunate situation with Turner Scott Motorsports after their primary sponsor for Jeb, Arrowhead, defaulted on payments to the team. Jeb has landed now with ThorSport Racing, and he's not only going to be driving in a ThorSport truck, the number 13 truck that we've seen Todd Bodine pilot so many times in the past at Daytona. He's also going to be behind the wheel of a ThorSport ARCA Racing Series car at Daytona on Saturday afternoon for the ARCA event. In fact, one of the same cars that Frank Kimmel drove to prominence in 2013 en route to an ARCA championship. Happy ending for Jeb Burton, I would have to say. He's got a ride at least for Daytona, and I know from what I've heard, ThorSport wants to run him for the full season, but of course it's those two little words, pending sponsorship.
Pending sponsorship, our favorite words, aren't they? But yeah, I'd say that given the situation that he was in, that this is about as good of a result as Jeb Burton could hope for. He is one of the myriad of young talents that I think deserves a full-time ride in some sort of national touring series. And I will obviously be rooting for him to get a full-time ride in the truck series. There's no question he can drive a race truck, and probably a race car for that matter. And, now that he's in the ARCA race, I think behind Bobby Gerhart, you kind of have to look at him as somebody who might be in that next tier of guys that could possibly sneak up and win that thing, just given how good that ThorSport machine was with Frank Kimmel in the past few seasons. No doubt that he's going to be fast in that. I would assume that he'll probably be pretty quick in the trucks as well, and just a really, really good thing to see Jeb Burton land the way he did.
7 poles and a win last year, so there's no denying that the kid's got talent.
Absolutely not, and I would go a little farther than Pikester did. Then as to say, not just this is the best situation he could have hoped for. This is almost like going from dead broke to hitting lottery one day. I know this is not a committed full season, but certainly. It looks like going to have a shot at winning 2 races at Daytona. And I think Jeb is more than capable of getting both of them done, as Jacob did mention. And I would like to see him end up in this race truck and running for a championship this year. It's a great opportunity for him. The ThorSport guys are certainly one of the very top teams in the sport. And, again, this could be sometimes when bad things happen. I always like to look at it as, one door closes, another one opens. And certainly this one opened for Jeb Burton on a short-term basis, and let's hope it continues on.
And we are certainly hoping for that for Jeb. Want to see him back on track full-time in 2014. Tom, let's keep talking trucks. A couple more driver announcements for Daytona. Turner Scott Motorsports, coincidentally, we were just talking about them, announced that Ryan Truex is going to be behind the wheel of the number 32 truck for the season opener at Daytona with Bass Pro Shop sponsorship. And another driver that knows Daytona very well, in fact, has a Truck Series win at Daytona, the 2012 winner, John King has signed with NTS Motorsports to race a Chevy Silverado in the season opener at Daytona. So now you've got two young guys with opportunities who were both in position to win the race a year ago, and for John King, who did win the race in 2012, all of a sudden makes the season opener look really interesting.
Yeah, it sure does. John King is good at Daytona, and again, was in position to win, and I think he's got a shot at it this year. I mean, NTS is a good organization. It's a great team for Greg Galding to come into, and with John King being added for Daytona, I think that's going to be an excellent opportunity for him, and certainly Ryan Truex getting into the 32 truck, a truck that certainly he did so well with last year. I think that's a team that really bears watching. Ryan is an up-and-coming racer who I think is going to be in Cup much sooner rather than later on a full-time basis and contending. I think Ryan's one of the very top prospects out there, and this is going to be a fun watch for both of them.
Was the full-time and contending comment forgetting that he signed with BK Racing for 2014?
No, he's full-time, but I'm saying full-time and contending. I expect him to actually be one of the standouts in the rookie class this year, and I think he could very well be the driver that carries that team for a good part of the season, because I think he's exceptionally talented, and if he continues to get opportunities like this in the other series to give him even more seat time and good equipment, I think that's only going to help him.
I would tend to agree with that, so it will bear watching as we get to Daytona. A couple more tidbits, one of which certainly being that sponsorship has fleeted the Panther Racing IndyCar team and gone over to Rahal Letterman Lanigan. The Army National Guard announced last week that Graham Rahal would be the focus of their new sponsorship package, and they would be sponsoring Rahal's number 15 entry full-time for the 2014 IndyCar season. So a big boost for Graham, knowing they've got financial stability after rotating a myriad of sponsors just to get him through the season last year, Tom. And this is a young guy who came out of the box big, but really has fallen off the map after that. So going to be interesting to see what Rahal can do in 2014.
Well, that team's always been a bit of an interesting team to watch. I think Graham Rahal's another one of those drivers that, I really would like to see him. I don't want to say that Rahal Letterman doesn't have top equipment, but I really believe Graham Rahal could contend for an IndyCar championship and win races, and I hope that maybe this year will be the year for him again. I think an exceptionally talented young racer, very savvy, and also very smart behind the wheel. You don't see him crashing out of very many races. He's very heads up when he's out there and just doesn't put the car in predicaments it shouldn't be in very often, and maybe that's why he hasn't the success that maybe some of us thought he would as far as results. But certainly I believe that this is a team that ought to be doing better than they have in the past, and so I'm hoping this to be the year for those guys, and that's good to see that they've acquired that sponsorship, though it's always bad when it comes at the expense of another team, but that's the business angle of the sport.
Yeah, it is. So we'll have to wait and see what Panther Racing does for 2014. Last tidbit, and we're going to get to more of this in our Black Flag, Checkered Flag segment coming up here after the commercial break. But Richard Petty made a couple comments that made some news earlier today. In an interview with the Charlotte Observer, Pikester, I want to turn to you on this one real quick before we go to commercial. Richard Petty was asked what he thought his chances of Danica Patrick winning a race in the Sprint Cup Series were, and Petty was very blunt, much like his son Kyle. It appears the two of them are on a very similar wavelength when it comes to Danica. Richard said, if Danica Patrick's going to win a Sprint Cup race, the only way it's going to happen is if everybody else doesn't show up.
I would like to believe that Richard Petty said that, not because of Danica's gender, but because of her results and relative lack of success in National Touring Series in NASCAR outside of the pole she got at Daytona. At the end of the day, though, we don't know, because there's always the possibility that he just has a predisposition against women driving in NASCAR, period, which personally I think would be unfortunate, but that's also on the table as well. So I don't think we're really ever going to know the truth of the matter as far as that's concerned. If it was made on basis of her results, I'm okay with it, because from that angle, I kind of would have to agree with just the fact that I don't see her having that much success within this season or the next few seasons. I haven't seen much in terms of race pace and performance that would indicate that she'd be able to replicate her success in IndyCar, or at least be as successful in IndyCar as she would be in NASCAR. But we'll see, I guess, is really the end and the bottom line on that.
And we'll get to more of that in our Black Flag, Checkered Flag segment coming up. For now, though, we're going to step aside for a commercial break. More to come, though, on the madness. The infamous return of the Black Flags and the Checkered Flags is next on Speed77 Radio and Race Chaser Online. We'll break down our opinions. And coming up, we'll have an interview with X1R Pro Cup Series driver Reed Wilson. That's next on The Madness. You're listening to Speed77 Radio and Race Chaser Online. We are your home for motorsports.
For 17 years, Stock Car Steel has been a leading materials supplier to the racing industry. We're proud they're a motorsports content partner here at Race Chaser Online. The biggest names in NASCAR trust Stock Car Steel for raw materials such as carbon steel, chrome moly, DOM, aluminum, plastics, and much more. You can't build a race car without the basic materials, and Stock Car Steel is the place to get them. Don't forget to also visit Stock Car Steel's sister company, SRI Supplies, for racing and industry. SRI is the place to go for all your shop supply needs. Nuts, bolts, rivets, tapes, adhesives, cutting tools, chemicals, body shop supplies, paint shop supplies, lubricants, and more. A well-stocked race shop is a winning race shop, and the path to winning begins with 3 letters, SRI. For more information, visit stockcarsteel.com or SRI-supplies.com. Check them both out on Facebook or call them toll-free at 1-888-752-7272, 1-888-752-7272.
I'm Jacob Seelman.
And I'm Tom Baker,
You're listening to Speed77 Radio.
powered by Race Chaser Online.
We are your home for motorsports. Welcome back to Motorsports Madness here on Speed77 Radio and Race Chaser Online. Jacob Seelman, Tom Baker, and James Pike haunting the round table tonight as we break down all the news and interviews of the day from around the world of motorsports. And Tom, our next piece here on the Madness tonight circles around a young rising star in the X1R Pro Cup Series ranks, formerly the Hooters Pro Cup Series. Reed Wilson certainly trying to make his mark on track, but also doing a lot of work off track too.
Yeah, he is. Reed is really interested in and passionate about doing any kind of charity work or organizational work, cause work that involves youth. He's very strong with that, and he has picked up a new cause for 2014 that he has been led to give a hand with, and he talks a lot about it in the interview that I was able to do with him this past week. Let's just go ahead and listen to that, and you'll hear what Reed has to say.
Reed, I know you've got to be excited about finally getting a full season behind the wheel of the full-size stock car.
Yeah, it's going to be a great opportunity for the Bojangles crew. We used last year as mainly a learning year. You know, we learned a lot of stuff. I learned a lot of stuff. I'm still growing. I don't think any driver is ever perfect. But hopefully with this year, we can come back with the Bojangles car and just pick up a few wins. Hopefully, go for a championship. We got really good guys coming in this year like we had last year. I don't know if Clay Rogers just hurt his wrist. I believe he broke it, but he's going to be in the series again. I think his wrist is going to be healed. Unfortunately, he's going to still be in the contention. So But it's just a great opportunity to race with those guys again and have more experience. So it's going to be a lot more fun.
Well, it looks like with some of the changes that they've made as far as chassis and motor changes and all of that, it looks like there's an opportunity for more folks to come into the series with some different equipment.
Yeah, you can definitely come in with I guess more of a different style body with a different motor, like a Roush Yates motor. So I think that's going to bring a lot of guys from a couple different series into it. It should work. I hope it does, because it's a fun series. There's a lot of great drivers. I mean, it's a lot of laps, but all the laps are really green. There's never really cautions, so everyone knows what they're doing too. It's a lot of fun.
Now, you've aligned yourself with a cause over the past several months that's, I know it's fairly new to you for 2014. Talk a little bit about what you're doing.
I've actually hopped on board with the Alive at 25 program with the Safety and Health Council of North Carolina. They're a bunch of great people. It's the Alive at 25 program is for teens, actually teens and young adults 16 to 25 that have just gotten their license, or they just got a ticket and they want to clear that so that they don't have to pay a fine or their insurance doesn't go up, mainly for speeding, running a red light, stoplight, stuff like that. I kind of go there just to talk for a few minutes, 15 minutes at each class, and discuss with them, why I'm a race car driver and I wreck and I get out of the car, and it can end up a lot differently with the, street cars, and kind of give them my input and my story, share my story with the racing.
So it's an excellent cause, and it's a great message that needs to get out there more, and it seems like one that's very passionate to you. See that you're doing a great job keeping Facebook filled with all of those types of stats and things to try to illustrate the dangers of just not using proper driving technique, texting and driving, things like that.
Yeah, I try to keep everyone updated, on a bunch of facts, stats of why there are organizations out there like this one to keep kids aware, to keep teens aware that you're not always going to get lucky when you put yourself in dangerous situations like texting and driving or running a stop sign because you feel like it's 2 in the morning, no one's going to be on the roads, and remind kids that a lot of teens don't blame themselves for anything. They blame other things, and it is your fault sometimes, and you don't want to live with the fact that it is your fault for something stupid.
That's a good point. I know that you don't do all this racing stuff alone. Bojangles has been a huge part of it for you. Talk about people who help you, sponsors, all of that stuff.
Yeah, Bojangles is a great organization, great business. They put so much time and money into charity and a bunch of different things. They've helped me and pushed me along to do this Alive at 25 program. We both work with the MDA very closely. Things like that. They support me too, as well, along with the charities. And I couldn't thank them enough. Bojangles, Meredith Web Printing, they're a great company. They support me too. And they've both been with me for a good 3 years now, and I love the relationship with them. They're both great companies.
Well, it's certainly been fun to watch you come up through the ranks and to get to know you and your family. You're in a good position now with the Pro Cup Series with an opportunity to get a full year of experience in a full-size stock car and certainly run for the championship and run for race wins. Certainly wish you the best of luck with that, and look forward to seeing what the future may hold for you.
Thank you very much.
Reed is just a super nice kid and a really, really talented racer who's improved a lot over the last couple of years. Of course, he's got some great people around him for the Pro Cup effort. And, he and Clay Rogers, that was kind of an in-joke there for Reed. When he was talking about Clay and the wrist and not being back in the series, he was having a little fun there at Clay's expense. But Clay's helped him quite a bit, and I just think that the possibilities for Reed are quite high if he could just, again, it's all about dollars and cents, but it's about putting yourself in the right position to attract those dollars and cents as well. And if they can get the right program around him, I think he's got a chance to go far, and it's always fun to talk to him. He's a very entertaining young man with a good sense of humor and just enough of a wisecrack in him to make him unpredictable, which is always fun.
Very true it is. All right, kids, let's rock and roll into the good and the bad here. Let's roll with our now infamous new segment, the black flag, checkered flag, shall we? Here's how it's going to work. We're going to go around the table. Pikester, you're new at this, so we'll catch you up real quick. We're going to go around the table, and each of us is going to give a black flag, which is our jeers, and a checkered flag, which is our cheer for the week. But we got to do it race style. So, Tom, I'm going to start with you. What's your black flag for this week?
Well, I'm going to just take control for a moment because my black flag and my checkered flag are both related to the same thing. Are both related to the story that broke this morning about the infamous Richard Petty quote about Danica Brick. My checkered flag goes to Richard Petty for having the courage to be honest and say what he thinks. In this day and age, we worry way too much about political correctness, and my black flag goes to all those who are chiding Richard and talking about how much respect they've lost for his comment. My goodness, what, have we never heard Kurt or Kyle Busch speak? Did we not hear Kevin Harvick speak about silver spoons in RCR last year? I didn't hear anybody talking about respect they lost for Kevin Harvick after he made that comment. Come on, folks. The truth is that as much as we'd all like to be politically correct, and I think it's great that Danica made it to Cup and set a standard for women in racing, and there surely are a lot of talented women racers out there at all levels who might do something good in Cup, but checkered flag goes to Richard Petty because, in my opinion, I agree totally. She will never win a non-plate race in NASCAR Sprint Cup as long as she races in the series. And black flag to all of those who question the king and talk about how much respect they've lost for him, because I think it's very selective and unfortunate that they don't seem to apply the same standard to everybody who gives a quote to a media member. So that's my checkered flag and black flag. I don't see anything wrong with what Richard said, although he could have done the same thing by just simply saying no.
Alrighty then. I guess now that we've given you control, I'll take a little bit of it back here and go to my black flag.
You can have it all, my friend.
I'll go to my black flag for the week, and actually it's not necessarily something that was announced this week, but something that's coming into the spotlight this week. My black flag is the fact that the K&M Pro Series East race coming up on next Tuesday night for the UNOH Battle at the Beach is going to be a points race. Have we learned nothing from last year's debacle? All we saw was beating and banging and caution after caution after caution and outbreaking, and it was a mess. Why do we need to make a mess a points race? Get real, people. It's not going to make the show any better. If anything, people are going to know that the win carries with it championship points, more championship points, and that could have the potential to make it that much worse. There's my black flag, and I have a feeling we're going to see it play out exactly 1 week from tomorrow during the UNOH Battle at the Beach. I'm not going to say anything on the modified portion yet because we're going to get to that a little bit later. And looking at the entry list, I think that race has the potential to be a little bit calmer than we expect, but at least the K&M Pro Series event, yikes. My checkered flag, on the other hand, goes to ThorSport Racing for picking up Jeb Burton, at least for the season opener, with aspirations of running him for the full season. This is a kid that needs a top-flight ride, and as you said, Tom, he hit the lottery. This is a team coming off winning the championship in 2013 with Matt Crafton, multiple race wins with Johnny Sauter, and this is a team that I know Jeb Burton can sit right in that truck with, go to Daytona, and potentially win the race, just like he could potentially win the ARCA race that they're putting him in on Saturday. Checkered flag to ThorSport for recognizing talent and snapping it up the minute it was made available. Pikester, what have you got?
Well, I have to say that my black flag definitely isn't as charged as yours, and I don't even necessarily know if it counts as an announcement per se, but my black flag goes to Chad Reed's injuries, which I think we're going to talk about a little bit in detail later on, so I'm going to try and spare the details for now, but generally speaking, just a shame to see that happen to him, given the success that he's been having over the past few weeks. just hate it for him. Checkered Flag, on the other hand, is going to go to some just announced news out of the V8 Supercars, actually, which have announced that for their races at Albert Park in support of the 2014 Formula One Australian Grand Prix, that they are going to go with NASCAR-style double-file restarts in those races. And if anybody has watched the V8 Supercars on a regular basis like I have, you know that that series is already crazy enough as is. So to think of these guys going with double-file restarts instead of their regular single-file into Turn 1 at Albert Park just makes my head almost explode. I'm so excited to see how that's going to play out, and I think it's just going to be tons and tons and tons of fun. So, Checkered Flag, V8 Supercars, well done.
And I think that would be a reversal right there of Snuggies for Dogs, because if anything, Pikester just gave that a big 2 thumbs up in comparison to Joel's 2 thumbs down a couple years ago when IndyCar tried it. So we'll see how that rolls. But with that being said, we're going to take our next caution flag, and when we come back, we are going to preview the UNOH Battle at the Beach and grab some of the latest out of the Modified and Regional Touring Series worlds. Kooza's in the house. Kyle Souza going to join us up next. You're listening to Speed77 Radio, powered by Race Chaser Online. The madness continues when we come back. Stay with us.
The odds of a young girl being discovered by an industry insider while singing to herself pumping gas? 1 in 300 million. The odds of the daughter of a clergyman from Severn, Maryland spending 11 weeks at number 1 on the U.S. singles charts? 1 in 19 million. The odds of going on to win 6 Grammy Awards? 1 in 1.4 million. The odds of selling over 40 million records? 1 in 800,000. The odds of this musician and performer having a child diagnosed with autism? 1 in 110. I'm Toni Braxton, and I encourage you to learn the signs of autism at autismspeaks.org. Early diagnosis can make a lifetime of difference. Autism Speaks. It's time to listen. Brought to you by Autism Speaks and the Ad Council.
For every turn, a twist. For every start, an untimely finish. For every win, someone who loses it. For every number, a nation. For every celebration, a brawl. For every split second, years of work. For every heaven, a hell. For every good old boy, a good old girl. For every curse, a prayer. For every ounce of order, a jug of chaos. For every twist, there's a turn.
I'm Jacob Seelman.
And I'm Tom Baker,
You're listening to Speed77 Radio.
powered by Race Chaser Online.
We are your home for motorsports. Welcome back to Motorsports Madness here on Speed77 Radio and Race Chaser Online. Time to move into part 2 of our show this evening, and it's going to start with a preview of next Tuesday's UNOH Battle at the Beach, and we're going to bring in our Modified and Northeast correspondent to help us out with all that, Kyle Souza. Kyle, first off, welcome back to the madness, and boy, I saw you sneak in for a little bit in the middle of our Black Flag, Checkered Flag segment, and we call it the madness for a reason, don't we?
Things getting a little heated, gentlemen. That was interesting to listen to. That segment's going to continue to grow, and maybe we can even get a modified of that segment together over the next couple of weeks, because this battle at the beach is going to be exciting.
Hey, you can do anything you want, Black Flag, Checker Flag, man. It's wide open.
You know, Tom, I was looking on YouTube this afternoon, and I was taking a look at last year's UNOH Battle of the Bees. Me and Jacob spoke about this past Thursday night on the Stock Car Shield show exactly how much of an excitement that race was, especially down to the finish with the bumping and running that we saw. Of course, Steve Park and Mike Stefanik. If you didn't watch last year's event, came down to a green-white checkered finish. Mike Stefanik and Steve Park going for the lead in turn 1 of the final lap. Stefanik spins, Park takes the checkered flag in car number 20 and ends up taking it home with the victory. This year going to be a little bit of a different story on many capacities. Let's see if we can first take a look at the entry list that was put out this afternoon. Jacob, we spoke about it last week. This entry list has got some rookies on it, but it also has some of the best that the Wheel and Modified Tour has to offer.
Yeah, it does, and I'm particularly impressed with the fact that this entry list has 30 cars on it and they're only starting 26, so believe it or not, we're actually going to be sending some guys home. But you want to talk about some heavy hitters that are going to be challenging for the win. Let's take a look down this entry list. Burt Myers, Doug Kobe, Donnie Leah, Ron Silk, Kyle Benjamin, the rookie, but we know how good he's been on the short tracks over the past couple years. Jason Myers, Ryan Preece, Tommy Barrett, another rookie who, Kyle, you think has a shot to really make some noise in that Chris Orr car this year. Justin Bonsignor, always a threat on the North. Jamie Tomeno, never can count him out, the all-time starts leader on the North. It's going to be fun. It is going to be so much fun Tuesday night, I think.
I agree, and I think one driver you didn't mention a second ago that we have to watch is Eric Goodale. Car number 58, the Riverhead Building Supply Chevrolet out of Riverhead, Long Island, New York, finished second last year in the Battle at the Beach 150, and he was there for the whole race inside the top 5. Car number 58 is going to be a threat. You have the big guys that we know are going to be competitive. The Myers brothers, Doug Kobe, Ryan Preece, but then we have the young guns that are going to make an effort. Kyle Benjamin, his first career start in the Wheel and Modified Tour, will drive the Menards Wicks Filter Chevrolet for Mike Curb, car number 7 that's won in the past. That car is going to be fast. Benjamin's going to be a factor before it's all said and done. You mentioned Tommy Barrett, the young gun, car number 22, the Mills, Massachusetts native that's taking over for Mike Stefanik's ride from a year ago. The Orr car is going to be quick with a young driver in it. Mario Fiore is heading down there with Tommy and the gang. That car is going to be good. I'm sure they're going to be competitive before it's all said and done. And don't forget Jamie the Jet Tomato and Justin Bonsignor. Even though Bonsignor is not going to run many Wheel and Tour races and he's going to focus with Art Barry in the Valenti Modified Racing Series, the New York driver has gone down to Daytona last year with that car. They're going to do it again. Hills Racing, car number 79, Dave Brigatti, the Cavalton, New York driver, driving for Hillbilly Motorsports down there at Daytona. They look like they're in good shape. Jimmy Zacharias out of New York is going to head down there. There is just this entry list just continues to get bigger and better every time we look at it. And Jacob, you mentioned we're going to send cars home. That's a first, even though it's the second year for the Battle at the Beach. That's a first. Last year, we did not have enough cars to send home. Instead, we started them all. We had some chaos, a little less chaos than we had in the K&N Pro Series race, but still some chaos. With 30 cars, we're starting 26. 4 take that trip home, and believe me, it's a long trip from Daytona all the way to, say, up here to Connecticut or Massachusetts. If you don't make this 150-miler, somewhat would say it's a wasted trip.
Agreed. And oh, by the way, that entry list is still subject to change because we've got about 3 more days for teams and drivers to file entries before everybody makes the trip down to Daytona. So it's going to be really interesting to see if we pick up anybody else between now and, about 5 o'clock on Friday afternoon when the entry lists close.
No, and I agree. Not only are we setting up for this coming weekend, the Sprint Unlimited, the ARCA race down there at Daytona, Bud Pole qualifying on Sunday afternoon. Now we're setting up for the big short track race down there in Daytona Beach. Not only at the new Smyrna Speedway with the competitive action that's going to be going on there on a nightly basis, we're going to have this Battle at the Beach for the Modifieds and the K&N Pro Series. I'm especially going to be keeping an eye on car number 2, the Dunleavy Truck and Trailer Repair Ford for Doug Kobe, full-time in that car this year after his long tenure with Wayne Darling. What can Doug do in car number 2, not only at the Battle at the Beach, but as we go further into the season? Doug is a long-time competitor with the Modifieds and the 2012 champion of the NASCAR Wheel and Modified Tour. Jacob, Tom, it's going to be interesting to see. And Tom, I know we spoke about Doug with that 52. Matt Hirschman taking over that ride for 2014. That's a side story, but Doug in car number 2, you got to think he's going to be competitive and be at the front before it's all said and done Tuesday night.
No doubt whatsoever. Going to be an interesting race there. I mean, I've never been big on temporary tracks in any situation, and I just hope that the change they made to the configuration helps a little bit, because I mean, there just wasn't much racing in the racing last year. It was just a bunch of wrecks and people out of the way. I think it makes I hope it makes a better impression of what the racing in those divisions is truly like from race to race for those who don't normally get to watch them. So hoping that the change in configuration does the trick and we see some good racing. And yeah, I would definitely expect to see him near the front on Tuesday night. That's going to be a good race.
I agree, Tom. Colby is going to be near the front, not only for that race, but as the season goes along, Doug is going to be a competitor that's going to be strong with the championship chase on the side. As we take a quick look to what's going to be going on next Tuesday night, it's covered by Fox Sports 2. I know the confusion between Fox Sports 1 and Fox Sports 2 is going to nag a couple of people, but Fox Sports 2 is going to cover the Battle at the Beats for the NASCAR Wheel and Modified Southern North Tour combination starting at 7 Eastern in the Motor Racing Network. The voice of NASCAR will pick things up at 6:45 with the pre-race show, and the simulcast is going to be shown by SiriusXM NASCAR Radio Channel 90. The K&N Pro Series will have practice starting on Tuesday morning along with the NASCAR Wheel and Modified Tour. They're both going to practice and qualify and race on the same day. The K&N race, of course, after the Wheel and Modified Tour event. It's going to be a great show down there. Past champions of the tour that are going to be in it include Doug Colby, Donnie Leah, Burt Myers, we spoke of, and Ronnie Silk. The underrated car number 6 that a lot of people are not talking about right now could come down and could be a factor before it's all said and done. Car number 6 knows how to hang around to the finish of the event, and he will be a strong fray down there in Daytona. Ryan Preece, the defending champion in car number 16. Watch out for Kyle Benjamin. This race just has big implications, but don't forget, you mess up in qualifying and you don't make the race, we could see a guy like Kyle Benjamin have to take that trip home before even getting to lap 1 of the 150.
And that's the catch right there. You've got to make the race before you have a shot to win it. And Kyle, real quickly, I want to talk about the one driver who everybody expected to be on this entry list that's not. And it's not a Northern Tour driver. It's a Southern Tour driver. And more importantly, it's a 4-time Whelen Southern Modified Tour champion. GB3, Georgie Brunhosel, not making the trip to Daytona. That was a shock to a lot of guys who expected Brunhosel to be on this entry list and to be a factor for the race win.
No, and I agree. Brunhosel was expected to get on the list. Unfortunately, when the list came out this afternoon, his car not on there. Tom, I know we spoke about George before. He's always there when it comes to the Southern Tour races. It just appears like the financial state was not there for that car to be able to take the trip to Daytona, which is unfortunate because he was definitely going to be a threat before it was all said and done.
Yeah, it is interesting. I mean, you know, again, it is an expensive proposition to go down there and race, even just for, you know, for a few days. It's a lot of travel if you come from that far up, and it's unfortunate that some of those guys didn't make the trip. Certainly would have made the race even better, but I still think it's going to be a great race even with who's there.
No, I completely agree. The field that we have of 30, 26 will start is completely stacked. This may be the best field of modifieds that have resembled for a race like this in a long time. Of course, it opening the season for the northern portion and the southern portion. The north portion will take a trip to the Icebreaker at Thompson, Connecticut Speedway on April 6th, so they have a long time to fix a race car if you have to, and I would expect that we're going to have to fix a couple of them when this one's all set and done. The wrecks last year, I do anticipate a lot of the same this year. Hopefully with the new configuration, it'll be more of the modified racing we're accustomed to up here in the Northeast and down in the South.
And it's certainly going to be interesting to see how it plays out Tuesday night live on Fox Sports 2 starting at 7 Eastern. Kyle, we appreciate you coming in and helping us analyze all the short track action that's getting ready to happen a week from tomorrow. Appreciate you being back on the madness and looking forward to breaking it all down with you again on Thursday night at 7 p.m. Eastern as we cover all the modified and late model news of the day on the Stock Car Steel SRI Motorsports show. We'll be back, Tom, Kyle, and myself, on the air Thursday night, 7 p.m. Eastern, and we will have another action-packed show.
Yeah, Jacob, I'm looking forward to it. Up here in New England, we'll mention it on Thursday night. Just got a press release from the Stafford Motor Speedway that they're going to be putting on a July 4th spectacular $5,000 to win SK show. Myself, Tom, and you will dive into that just a little bit. We'll continue to preview the battle at the beach. When we get to Thursday, it's going to be just about time to get cars rolling on track at the World Center of Racing.
Yeah, it will be. So with that, we're going to take another break here on the Motorsports Madness of the evening, and when we come back, we're going to hear from a USAC star who's getting ready to get on track tonight, as well as get on track for a 2014 run at a second USAC National Midget Championship. Chris Bell joins us on the Madness. Up next, you're listening to Speed77 Radio, powered by Race Chaser Online, and we'll be back right after this.
For 17 years, Stock Car Steel has been a leading materials supplier to the racing industry. We're proud they're a motorsports content partner here at Race Chaser Online. The biggest names in NASCAR trust Stock Car Steel for raw materials such as carbon steel, chrome moly, DOM, aluminum, plastics, and much more. You can't build a race car without the basic materials, and Stock Car Steel is the place to get them. Don't forget to also visit Stock Car Steel's sister company, SRI Supplies, for racing and industry. SRI is the place to go for all your shop supply needs. Nuts, bolts, rivets, tapes, adhesives, cutting tools, chemicals, body shop supplies, paint shop supplies, lubricants, and more. A well-stocked race shop is a winning race shop, and the path to winning begins with 3 letters, SRI. For more information, visit stockcarsteel.com or SRI-supplies.com. Check them both out on Facebook or call them toll-free at 1-888-752-7272, 1-888-752-7272.
All I wanted to do was just pick up a guitar and sing praise songs.
From IamSecond.com.
Well, when I got to 17, I was playing in after-hours bars, just in a bunch of trouble.
Grammy Award winner Michael W. Smith.
Smoking that first joint and feeling so guilty about it. From there, it was LSD, and your compass sort of just like disappeared. I knew where I belonged. I just couldn't get out. I was very depressed. I went on the floor and just began to shake. And I was just weeping. I was weeping. And I just began to just cry out for God. 12:30 at night, on the linoleum floor of my kitchen, the God of the universe came and wept with me on that floor. I know where my hope lies. It's not being a rock star. I'm a son of the High King of the universe.
Watch Michael's story at IamSecond.com.
I'm Jacob Seelman.
And I'm Tom Baker,
You're listening to Speed77 Radio.
powered by Race Chaser Online.
We are your home for motorsports. Welcome back to Motorsports Madness here on Speed77 Radio and Race Chaser Online. Jacob Seelman, Tom Baker, and James Pike around the round table tonight. And for our next segment, we had a chance to talk with a open-wheel rising star who has made waves all across the Midwest in the USAC ranks. Tom, you actually got a chance to talk with him last summer, and I got a chance to talk with him just the other day. Christopher Bell, the 2013 USAC National Midget Champion, just 18 years old, signed on with Keith Kunz Motorsports just before last year's Chili Bowl, and it's been like a match made in heaven ever since. The young man has been nothing short of incredible over the last 12 months, and he is now getting set to start his 2014 campaign and look to defend his championship, in addition to running some other open wheel events as well, running some non-winged and winged sprint car races in 2014 in addition.
Yeah, Chris is just really, really talented, and he's a super nice kid, too. Just a lot of fun to interview. I enjoyed talking with him this past season, and I know that you definitely enjoyed the interview that you got with him as well, and I'm looking forward. I've not had a chance to hear this yet, so I'm looking forward to hearing it.
And we're going to get right into it. We're going to roll the tape. Chris Bell actually getting ready to go on track right now for qualifying at Bubba Raceway Park. But earlier this afternoon, he sat down with us, and here's what he had to say about his upcoming 2014 season. Chris, first off, thank you for taking some time to talk with us this afternoon. You've been very, very busy over the last couple of seasons, and especially in 2013 between sprint car competition, both winged and non-winged, midget competition, and all over the USAC ranks. Talk a little bit about your 2013 season in review, first off, because you had a very successful season and a very diverse season as well.
Yeah, definitely. We had a really good year there in 2013. It was kind of my first year on the national scene, so it was nice to come out with a bang. I was fortunate enough to have plenty of good rides and to work with several very good teams.
And I know capped 2013 off in pretty much the best way you could. You scored the 2013 USAC National Midget Championship. Big accolade for you at just 18 years old. What did it mean to you to just burst onto the national scene the way you did and ultimately wrap it up in your first full-time year on the national scene with a championship?
It was definitely pretty cool. I mean, whenever Pete Willoughby and Keith Coons came to me there at the Chili Bowl, I guess it'd be the 2013 Chili Bowl, they kind of explained to me what they wanted to do and that they'd like to run me full-time for the 2013 and 2014 seasons. And whenever they came to me, I'd never even won a sprint car or midget race. And then now looking back at it, I ended up winning the USAC championship. So it's definitely kind of been a fairy tale year. And hopefully we can have similar success in 2014.
Talking about your car owners for this year, Keith Coons and the whole operation over there, what have you been able to learn from working with Keith and that entire operation in 2013? Because that's one of the most established operations in USAC and really in all of Midwest open wheel racing.
Yeah, I mean, going back to the micro stuff what I grew up in, it became very evident to me that you're only as good as the guys you're around and the car underneath you. So it's very important to make sure that you got a good race car and a good team behind you. And like I said, fortunately, I'm able to drive for Keith Coons Motorsports, and they give me an awesome race car every time I hit the racetrack, and it makes my job a lot easier.
Talk a little bit about your background for some of the fans who may not be very familiar with your name. I know a lot of people have been saying that your name is one that, especially in the open wheel world, people need to start learning. But for the race fans who may be listening who don't know a little bit of your background, talk a little bit about how you got your start in the open wheel world here over the last couple of years.
Basically, racing's been my whole life. I started whenever I was 6 years old, and then I moved up I ran junior sprints, which are basically miniature sprint cars, and then moved up to the micro sprint ranks and ran micro sprints before getting the opportunity to run midgets, and then get the opportunity to go run some 410 sprint car stuff for Berkeley in Ohio.
We've seen you race over the course of 2013, midgets, Silver Crown cars, sprint cars. You've run a very diverse campaign over the past year. What are some of the differences between the different classes of cars? Because you've really, no matter what it's been, whether it's been USAC or otherwise in the Midwest, you seem to have taken a handle to whatever you've gotten behind the wheel on. But what's some of the differences between some of the classes of cars you've raced in 2013?
I mean, all the cars are definitely different, but then again, they're all open wheel race cars, and we're still racing on dirt ovals. But fortunately, I had an opportunity to run the pavement midget some, and that was probably the most difficult thing for me to get used to, just because it was totally different than anything I'd ever ran. I mean, the dirt stuff is all really fun, and I look forward to running a lot of it again in 2014.
What was the biggest challenge for you running the pavement midget in 2013? As you said, it's not something you're very acquainted with, but what were some of the challenges that you encountered when you switched over to the asphalt?
Man, pretty much everything is backwards than whatever you've been taught running dirt. I mean, on dirt, for the most part, if you want to go faster, you just run harder, and that doesn't work on the pavement deal. So it's just taken me a little bit to get used to, and I'm definitely still need more laps and need more seat time. So I'm looking forward to getting back out there and then getting more practice on the pavement.
Let's talk a little bit about the Chili Bowl. You mentioned the 2013 edition, but I want to look at this year's Chili Bowl that took place just last month. You had a very, very strong run in this year's Chili Bowl. For Keith Coons, we're running right up there in the thick of it pretty much the entire week at the Tulsa Expo Center. Had a strong third place run, but got into it late with Kevin Swindell. Talk a little bit about your experience at this year's Chili Bowl. I know you guys were a little disappointed to not come away with the victory, but I know overall it was a big experience for you guys.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, my first race for Keith Coons was in the 2013 Chili Bowl, and it felt good to be able to go back in 14 because I was a little bit more comfortable with the team that I was running for, and they built a little bit nicer pieces this year, and fortunately I was able to get a good pill draw there on my prelim night, and things worked out, and I was able to pick up the heat race win, which gave me a lot of passing points, and then able to start on pole of the feature, and it went green to checker, and we were able to lead all the laps, and then get another good draw for the feature on Saturday and start on the front row, but just came up a little bit short.
You had a very spirited battle there with Kevin Swindell. Kevin, obviously a four-time Chili Bowl champion. When you were racing with him there in the closing laps, were you able to either learn anything about the way you were driving that may help you in future trips to the Chili Bowl?
It's tough to say. Whenever Kevin got to me, it kind of ruined my hopes of trying to pass Brian for the lead because then I was having to race Kevin and worry about what he was going to do instead of worrying about my race and trying to catch Brian. It seemed like we had a good car on the longer run, but every time I got up to Brian, the yellow would come out, and then I couldn't get very good restarts at all, and that's where Kevin was able to make his move on me.
Looking ahead a little bit, you've got a very busy schedule planned for 2014, looking to, I'm sure, defend your USAC National Midget Championship for 2014, and I know Keith Coons always has a lofty plan set for the USAC ranks. What's 2014 shaping up to look like for you? Where can fans expect to see Chris Bell on track?
Yeah, well, like you mentioned, we'll be back on the USAC deal, running the full midget schedule, and then as well, new for me this year, I'll be running the full Silver Crown schedule as well for Team 6R. So around that, I'm going to fill in with some wing sprint car races for CH Motorsports and the number 83 cars. That's a new team that I'm actually just getting my start with down here in Florida, and look forward to running a very heavy schedule with them as well.
And I know you're one of the young guns really trying to make it up in the sport. 18 years old, trying to really advance in a way that we've not seen since the likes of guys like Kyle Larson, Tony Stewart, these guys who are so versatile and able to win in multiple different classes of cars. Ultimately, where do you set the goal for yourself, knowing the track record of some of the guys like Larson and Stewart who have pretty much done the same thing you're doing right now?
That's also a tough question to answer. I mean, as far as what my hopes are, I mean, I'm living my dream right now. If I get the opportunity to try the pavement stuff and the stock car deals, then I'd like get the opportunity, but I'm living my dream right now. I'm getting to race as many times as I can and do it for a living. So that's what matters to me.
And certainly very wise words at a very young age, Chris. And I know all this success you've had over the last season or so couldn't be possible without a lot of people and a lot of support behind you. So I'm going to step out of the way and let you give some shout-outs. Talk a little bit about who makes it happen for Chris Bell.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I just have to give thanks to all my supporters. And one of my biggest supporters throughout the way has got to be Rick Ferkel. I mean, he gave me the opportunity in a sprint car before I'd ever been in a sprint car in my life, and let alone a 410 sprint car. So I got to give him a big thanks. And then also Pete Willoughby and Keith Coons. They also took a chance on me, and it paid off.
And I know a lot of people looking forward to seeing you on track for 2014. I know you're looking forward to get back on track, Chris. As we've already seen, very driven to make things happen in 2014, and we appreciate you taking some time to talk with us here this afternoon. We wish you all the best as your 2014 season starts heating up, and look forward to seeing you on track here over the next couple of months.
Yeah, thank you very much for having me on.
Tom, can I just be the first one to say that if this kid keeps doing what he's doing in 2014, that I'm going to hop on the bandwagon of people that's going to start saying he needs to pull a Tony Stewart and go to NASCAR, because it seems like whatever he touches, he's fast in, he can win in, and as we saw in the USAC midget ranks, he can win championships in.
Well, I'm already there as far as how good he is. I am not so sure. I don't know if I'd rather see him in NASCAR. I'd rather see him try to head down the road toward IndyCar and see what he could do with that world. But certainly he is one of these drivers who just adapts to anything, and I very much see him as a future star in whatever else he decides to race. I just think he's got the marketability, he has the savvy and the talent behind the wheel, and like I said, he just has the total package to go far in the sport. and to keep moving up the ranks. So I hope he has the luck and the situation to be able to do the same, because if all of it comes together, we're going to be hearing about Christopher Bell for a long, long time in motorsports.
I do fully agree with you there, and with that, we are going to take our top of the hour commercial break, and when we come back, we're going to bring in some other friends from our cast of characters to talk some Northeast dirt action and preview the Dirt Car Nationals at Volusia Speedway Park. Stephen Ovens and the cast of the Turn 5 Racing Podcast going to join us next. You're listening to Motorsports Madness on Speed77 Radio and Race Chaser Online. We are your home for motorsports. Back after these words.
Packers,
Vikings,
Red State,
Blue State.
We come from different places.
Uptown,
Downtown.
We come to different conclusions.
half empty,
Half full.
But no matter how different we are, we're all connected, and we can all make a difference. That's why United Way brings people, expertise, and resources together to improve the education, income, and health of our communities, the building blocks for a better life. When we live united, our efforts, magnified by others, add up to real change. Children succeed in school, families gain financial stability, the health of our neighbors improves, and suddenly, so do our communities. But real change won't happen without you.
Live united.
So let's look beyond our differences.
Live united.
One by one, let's make a difference. Let's reach out a hand to one and influence the condition of all.
Live united.
Give, advocate, volunteer. Live United. Sign up today at liveunited.org. Brought to you by United Way and the Ad Council.
Welcome back to Motorsports Madness here on Speed77 Radio and Race Chaser Online, and we move now to our next segment here at the top of the hour and bring in the rest of our cast of characters. Tom, I think we've accounted for everybody except Joel tonight. Not enough open wheel news floating around the pipeline here, but we bring in the guys from the Turn 5 Racing Podcast up in New York to help us preview the Volusia Dirt Car Nationals and all the news of the day from around the Northeast dirt world. Stephen Ovens and the entire cast of characters. Steve, welcome back to the madness, and you've brought your friends back with you, and we love that.
We sure have, Jacob. It's a pleasure to be on with you guys tonight, and I know everyone except Joel. I said earlier, the gang's all here. Get the Batman logo spotlight out and put it up in the air, because we're ready to be on the madness.
And you know, Tom and Jacob, I specifically watched Rush this week just so I could talk to Sebastian. Joel Sebastian, yeah. Sebastian Ellen. So.
This is the kind of stuff we get into trouble with when we're on the madness. It's just, we call it such for a reason. It's great. And I know we're going to have Joel back on here sooner rather than later, but Steve, certainly a lot of enthusiasm getting set here for the Dirt Car Nationals at Volusia Speedway Park. The Big Block Modifieds invading along with the World of Outlaws late models and sprint cars for 2014. It's the kickstart to the season, and I know especially you guys from up there in the Northeast, the home of the Big Block Modifieds, looking forward to seeing exactly what's going to happen.
Well, we sure are, Jacob. And we were just taking a look at the schedule. Everything gets kicked off this week down there at the Volusia Speedway Park down in Volusia, and it all starts Friday, February 14th, with the start of the Dirt Car Nationals for the World of Outlaws sprint cars. They have 3 nights of action, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Then you switch over to the Big Block Modifieds, which, of course, we're a little bit partial to ourselves. Yep. They kick off 4 nights of action, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday next week, the 19th through the 22nd. And they've always called that the Florida Tour for the Big Block Modifieds. 4 really exciting nights of action, and I cannot wait to actually have some modified results to talk about here, both with the madness and on our podcast. So,
yeah, from the Northeast Modifieds, we've grown up with them. They've been our staple since we were 8, 9, 10 years old, able to get to the racetrack and to see how the storylines. Matt Shepard driving for Hanky Baldwin, how's that going to come out? So it's really exciting. Brett the Jet Hearn is always top of the game down there. So
Yeah, Brett Hearn going to be going for his 15th or 16th championship, I think it is now. I know that's not the numbers, but he's just a dominant figure. Also, along with the big modifieds and the World of Outlaw sprint cars, you've also got the World of Outlaw late model series. They kick off their season this coming week at the Bubba Raceway Park Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. For the late model Winter Nationals, the 14th through the 16th. And big news coming out this past week about the World of Outlaw late models. The past champion for the series is not going to be in his car with some undisclosed health issues. So that's really going to throw a wrench into his 2014 championship plans.
Yeah, it really is, Steve, and I hate that for Josh Richards. A very, very tough blow. Tom, you and I watched Josh at the World Finals this past November. Just an unbelievable talent in the dirt world, and for health issues to sideline a guy with as much heart and as much passion for what he does as Josh Richards, you got to send your thoughts and prayers out to that whole operation because he doesn't step out of that car. You basically have to drag him out of it.
Oh, yeah, Josh is a true competitor and certainly one of the best in late model racing. Just a shame to not see him be able to run. And, yeah, I certainly would agree with that. Prayers for improving health for Josh, a speedy recovery so we can get back behind the wheel. That's definitely not good news.
No, it's not. It's a very tough situation. But, that Rocket team, though, they are going to get back in the saddle. They are going to press on. They're not worried about the fact that their lead driver is not going to be there for a couple of weeks. Brandon Shepard, certainly very capable, Stephen. He's going to fill in that number one car until Richards can get back. So it's not like they're out. They're just down for the moment. And we'll see what they can do when Josh Richards gets back for 2014.
Yeah, and they've certainly left the car in capable hands with Shepard, and he will help carry the torch for the Rocket chassis. And they also said that it's important to note that they will still be able to run for the Car Owners Championship. So they're not out of that, and we've always seen stranger things. We don't know how long Josh is going to be out, but if it's only a race or two, maybe three, and he goes on a tear in the summer and into the early fall, you really never know what can happen. So he's certainly not out of it by any stretch of the imagination.
Yeah, and I think that there was a couple different scenarios that were going around. They did talk about maybe parking the race car, and Josh was like, "No, you're not parking the race car. I'll be here at the shop. I'll be at the track. I just can't be behind the wheel."
As we're talking about late models, it was also important to note that we have some developing news up here in the Northeast, particularly up here in New York. We have what we're calling next week's episode, the Great Crate Debate, which pits GM crate motor late models versus a series that's pretty near and dear to our hearts here locally in the Central Finger Lakes, is the Open 360 late models, most notably the BRP, which is Bicknell Racing Products late model series. And we have some pretty potent guests for next week's show. We're going to have the series director from the BRP Can-Am late models, which is an Open 360 late model class. They run a certain set of rules, an Open 360 motor in a stock, what they call a stock stub front end chassis, which is not a full-blown late model chassis, versus the Crate Sportsman, which is a GM crate engine dropped into a full-blown late model chassis. So we're going to talk to Gary Montgomery from the BRP series. We're also going to talk to Carl Fredrickson from Dick Berger and Speedway Illustrated. He has a very pointed opinion about any crate engine program, and particularly with the late models, and he is going to be a wealth of knowledge for us to discuss that. We're also going to talk to representatives from the Go Nuclear late model series, which runs up here in the Northeast in Canada, and we'll talk to one of their series officials as well to give us some more information about the crate late model program. So it's really going to be a lot of differing opinions, I'm sure. It's going to be a lot of fun to talk about, and just going to be a great episode here for us, and be able to share that information with you guys as well.
Yeah, it's going to be very interesting. I'm personally very interested to hear exactly both sides of the debate, Steve, because certainly the crate late model scene and the late model scene in general up there in the Northeast a little bit different than what we've got down here in the South. So it's certainly going to be a scene that I think a lot of people are going to be very interested to hear exactly what's going on up there. So a lot of good stuff coming out of the Northeast. You and the Turn 5 guys doing a great job, and we appreciate all the contributions you always bring to the table, not just with the Turn 5 podcast, but also here on the Madness. And looking forward to having you on next week as well to break down all the action from the Dirt Car Nationals. We'll have dirt car results, we'll have late model results, we'll have sprint car results. Finally, race season is here.
Yes, it is, and it is here to stay. We can't wait, and thank you guys so much for having us. We're actually getting ready to record the ending of our show, and we're going to do a little buy or sell, thanks to your guys' suggestion from last week.
Oh boy, suggestions abound, and it just continues. It's going to be a lot of fun.
All right, thanks, guys. Thanks for having us on. We'll see you next week.
And with that, we're going to take our final commercial break here on the Madness, and when we come back, we'll send it to the checkered flag. James Pike and I will break down the AMA Supercross action of the weekend, and we will wrap up this show to the finish line. That's coming up right after these words. You're listening to Speed77 Radio and Race Chaser Online. Back after these words.
For 17 years, Stock Car Steel has been a leading materials supplier to the racing industry. We're proud they're a motorsports content partner here at Race Chaser Online. The biggest names in NASCAR trust Stock Car Steel for raw materials such as carbon steel, chrome moly, DOM, aluminum, plastics, and much more. You can't build a race car without the basic materials, and Stock Car Steel is the place to get them. Don't forget to also visit Stock Car Steel's sister company, SRI Supplies, for racing and industry. SRI is the place to go for all your shop supply needs. Nuts, bolts, rivets, tapes, adhesives, cutting tools, chemicals, body shop supplies, paint shop supplies, lubricants, and more. A well-stocked race shop is a winning race shop, and the path to winning begins with 3 letters, SRI. For more information, visit stockcarsteel.com or SRI-supplies.com. Check them both out on Facebook or call them toll-free at 1-888-752-7272, 1-888-752-7272.
I'm Jacob Seelman.
And I'm Tom Baker.
You're listening to Speed77 Radio,
Powered by Race Chaser Online.
We are your home for motorsports. Welcome back to Motorsports Madness here on Speed77 Radio and Race Chaser Online. Tom, James, certainly going to be an interesting last segment. And James, I want to turn to you on this one because you and I watched the action unfold Saturday night for the AMA Supercross boys. And boy, just when we thought the 2014 campaign couldn't throw us another surprise, did it ever throw us another surprise?
Well, there's that, but I mean, can we really be all that shocked? This is a series that has thrived in recent years on the unpredictability, save for Ryan Villopoto's consistency. So I can't necessarily say that I'm surprised that we saw the twists and turns that we did in San Diego on Saturday night.
And how about the biggest twist of them all, and the feast or famine back to feast for James Stewart, who finally gets another victory, wins in San Diego, picks up career win number 46 for Stewart. It's been a long drought from victory lane. Not quite as long as Chad Reed, but long nevertheless, and good to see Stewart get back to victory lane, James. And all of a sudden, you got to talk about if he can keep it on 2 wheels and not hit the dirt. Can James Stewart come back and win another Supercross championship?
I think a lot of that is going to depend on whether or not Villopoto stays as consistent as he's been. Another podium for him on Saturday night, got second behind James. And to some degree, you can run down Villopoto, but I think at this point it's going to take him having a slip or two to make this really a race for the title. Right now it's very much in control of Villopoto and very much his title to lose as far as I can tell.
Hey now, don't count out Ken Roczen. He's only 7 points back. I wouldn't say this is over just yet, for sure.
Oh, it's not over. By no means is it over. But if Villopoto keeps on putting up podiums, first, second, thirds, it's going to be very, very hard for him to be caught. In order for that to happen, somebody's just going to have to go lights out on this East Coast swing and win maybe 3 or 4 mains to make up that gap. And it could be done. I just think that it's relatively improbable for that to happen.
Oh, but yet Ryan Villopoto hasn't gone on that tear of momentum that he usually goes on about this time. Usually we've seen him win 4 of the 6 races, and he's won 2 so far. So I wouldn't say Villopoto's been as consistent as he's been in past years either. That's the thing. I think we're underestimating how wide open this really is, just from the fact that we assume Villopoto's going to go out on one of his famous tears as he's done over the last 3 years, but I don't know that I see that in the cards this year.
It might not be in the cards. That's definitely a valid point, and I think it's also a valid point that he hasn't been as consistent in this season as he has been in seasons past. But you have to respect what he's been able to do. 3rd at Anaheim, 2 wins on the year in Phoenix and Oakland, got 2nd last weekend in Anaheim. Or rather San Diego. It's not quite the dominance that we've seen from him. But still, when you're putting up those podium numbers, it doesn't matter who you are or who you're running against. You're going to be pretty hard to beat.
This is true, and it's going to be very interesting to see. Ryan Villopoto right now the points leader over Ken Roczen, but it's not over. We've still got 11 races to go, and the East Coast swing getting ready to heat up. So anything can happen, and anything probably will happen before the end of this season. We've already seen a lot of it happen, but James, you alluded to it in the Black Flag, Checkered Flag segment, and I want to revisit it here. Chad Reed. Reed went down hard in the San Diego event Saturday night, and unfortunately, looking like it's going to be a tough season for him now. Talk a little bit about what we know for Chad Reed, because as it's come out here over the last couple days, the injury is a little bit worse than what it originally looked on Saturday.
Yeah, the accident itself didn't look that terrible, at least initially. It was really when he stayed down on the ground for 5 to 10 minutes and the medics had to come out that you began to realize just how serious the issue was. He was battling with Ken Roczen for 3rd on the final lap of the race in San Diego, and he clipped the rear wheel of Roxon's bike going over a whoop section and fell over face first forward on the bike. Eventually found out a few days later that he has a broken scapula, a broken collarbone, and a broken T1 vertebrae. And he plans to run in Dallas. That is his intention. However, when you're in as much pain as I would imagine he'd be in, I think it's going to be really, really tricky for him to even get on the bike, much less contend for the title like he had been doing with the fantastic string of results that he had coming up to this race in San Diego. So just a really, really, really big blow for him. I think it's going to be very hard for him to maintain his place in the championship hunt at this point. We might see somebody else step up and try to take his place, maybe even Roczen. You look at the results of the West Coast swing, and you have to believe he's kind of the favorite to take over that challenger spot and that number 2 spot for the title against Villopoto. But just a really, really tough break for a guy who finally had some good luck coming his way after all those years without a win.
Yeah, and it's very tough. So we'll have to wait and see what Chad Reed can or can't do when it comes to Dallas. But gentlemen, before we round out the show tonight, it's going to be a big weekend of racing coming up. Everybody's alluded to it all throughout the program. We've got Speed Week starting this weekend. The ARCA Racing Series taken to the track Saturday afternoon for the Lucas Oil 200, and then Stars and Cars, the NASCAR Sprint Cup Series taken to the track, the High Banks of Daytona Saturday night for the Sprint Unlimited, the All-Star event for pole winners throughout the season. Tom, I want to start with you because this is the part where we pull out our crystal balls, dust them off after a long winter's nap, and say it's time to go back to work. Time to make some predictions. What do you envision happening on Saturday afternoon and Saturday evening?
Oh boy, I mean, these are always two of the toughest races to predict because you could basically, it's like playing 52 card pickup. You just throw all the names up in the air and let them fall and then pick one out of the hat. The ARCA race, I really am going to be keeping an eye on a couple of drivers. First of all, I'm going to be keeping a very close eye on Frank Kimmel because I believe that man is motivated to win this race, and he is long overdue. So I'm going to keep an eye on Frank Kimmel. I'm also going to be keeping an eye on anything with a Venturini Motorsports logo on it, and you can flip a coin between those cars. I think they're all going to be up in front contending, but I'm going to stick with Kimmel. I think that's my first hunch, and I think Frank is just so long overdue to win this. I'm going for the Hollywood ending. And as far as Saturday night, here again, it's basically flip a coin. You know, this race is one of those races that I enjoy the most out of all the races during the year because, first of all, it is the first race for the Sprint Cup Series, and it's a short race, and everybody just kind of has fun with it. You know, I think you got to be looking at, I don't know, shoot, you can pick it out of a hat, Matt Kenseth, I suppose.
Oh, you know, I kind of like that pick just because of how dominant Kenseth was in the Daytona 500 before his engine gave up last February. But I'm going to roll with my picks here, and then, James, I'll turn to you. For the ARCA race on Saturday, I like the Hollywood ending, Tom. I just don't think it's going to happen. Love Frank Kimmel to death. The man, you're right, is long overdue. But it's not going to happen, and I'll tell you why. And it has to do with one number and one sponsor, and that's the number 5 and Lucas Oil. Bobby Gerhardt's got 8 wins. He almost won the race a year ago, had a mechanical failure with 5 laps to go that handed it to John West Townley. My pick, right off the bat, Bobby Gerhardt wins the ARCA Racing Series event on Saturday afternoon.
Way to go out on a limb, Jacob. Way to go way out on a limb, Jacob. Way to go.
Hey, it's called a crystal ball. It's not called going out on a limb, per se. The whole point of this is who we think is going to win the race. I think Bobby Gerhardt's going to win the race.
It's like picking Jimmy Johnson to win a title, but go ahead.
How about the Sprint Unlimited, though? This is going to be a fun race to watch Saturday night. And just all the new faces in new places, you never can truly know what's going to happen because it's the start of a new season. Everybody thinks they've got a shot at it, and quite truthfully, everybody probably does have a shot at it come Saturday night. But I'm going to go with a guy who is not Tony Stewart, who has had a lot of success in the what is now the Sprint Unlimited, used to be the Budweiser Shootout in the past, and oh, by the way, he's won it a couple times before too, including in spectacular fashion. I'm going to go with Tony Stewart's new hire. Kevin Harvick wins the Sprint Unlimited Saturday night. Pikester.
I would say we want to talk about going out on a limb. Picking Harvick to win the Sprint Unlimited isn't exactly going out on a limb either. But let's see, for picks. You know what? For the Sprint Unlimited, I'm going to go with this guy because he's had a decent amount of success at Daytona. Not really all that much, but just enough to make me believe that if he strings it all together and gets it right, he might be able to do something, and he's going to have one of the best paint schemes in the field. How about Brad Keselowski? Going to be running that white retro refresh Miller Lite, not Dodge, Ford. Nice little time warp of my own there. But I just really like that car, and I kind of feel like Keselowski might be able to do something in the Unlimited. And then since I really want to see Frank Kimmel win the ARCA race, and I have a really good habit of jinxing people, see the Swindells in the Chili Bowl, I think I'm going to pick Bobby Gerhart to win the ARCA race, so that he may actually get jinxed and Kimmel may actually win the race and get that win he actually deserves. So I'm kind of with you on that Bobby Gerhart's the man to beat. And if you're a betting man, you could do a lot worse than putting your money on him. At the very least, you know that you're going to be losing money with everybody else if he doesn't win the race. So
Bobby Gerhart fans, send your hate mail to James Pike at, well, never mind.
Y'all crack me up, and you know what? It's a good thing we're out of time, because I could do this for another hour and a half if we wanted. But for now, those are our crystal ball predictions, and we'll see how they play out on Saturday, because we'll be back for a whole wrap-up edition of Motorsports Madness on Monday night at 7 p.m. Eastern. We'll break down the Dirt Car Nationals, the ARCA Racing Series, the Sprint Unlimited, Daytona 500 pole qualifying, and much, much more. Race season is back, and it is in force, people. And on Thursday night, this coming, catch Tom Baker, Kyle Souza, and myself on the Stock Car Steel SRI Motorsports Report at 7 p.m. Eastern. We've got an all-star cast of drivers lined up, including an ARCA Racing Series preview from Mason Mitchell, who will join us on the show to talk about his prospects for Daytona and the new team that he started for 2014. But for now, for Tom Baker, James Pike, Joel Sebastianelli, Steven Ovens, the whole crew of the Turn 5 Racing Podcast, Kyle Souza, DJ Everett, and everybody that makes it happen behind the microphones and behind the glass at Speed77 Radio and Race Chaser Online, I'm Jacob Seelman, inviting all of you to check out RaceChaserOnline.com for all the news, driver interviews, and much, much more from around the world of motorsports. Until next time, keep it off the wall until we meet again, and have a great racing weekend. So long, everybody.